Begin by talking about the endocannabinoid system. Yeah, some of you are very excited right now. Hold your excitement. I'm gonna walk you through this very carefully. Now let's talk about what the endocannabinoid system is. Now the endocannabinoid system is critical for several components of your health. There's no doubt about that. There's nothing we could say or even would want to say that would ever question that. The endocannabinoid system really functions through the cannabinoid receptors. Now, there is most likely more than just CB1 and CB2 as a receptor. The belief is that there's most likely more, but these are the receptors that have been discovered and is known currently how and what they do in terms of functioning in the body. So, for example, CB1 receptor. This is a primary impact on the brain and the central nervous system. So thermoregulation, energy, appetite. Even when we look at things like, for example, you've heard a lot of research talking about marijuana and its great benefit for ocular health. That comes by interaction with the CB1 receptor in the central nervous system. CB2 receptors have reach that is outside of the central nervous system and primarily impact the endocrine system. So think of the chemistry system within the body, the glandular system in the body, and the body's immune capability, the body's immune system. So these are very targeted and very directed outcomes. Here's a good example of how the endocannabinoid system would work. How many of you ever heard of a runner's high? Well, runner's high comes from the endocannabinoid system. So anandamide, which is a specialized compound, which is a cannabinoid, that is released from neurons within the brain when you're under heavy exercise, like running, for example, and it elucidates a response direct from the CB1 receptor. And it gives you that sensation of the runner's high. The other side to that, however, I think is more critical. I hope the day never comes in doTERRA, and I can tell you it never will, where we source essential oils because that's what we're trying to elucidate in the body. That will not happen, ever. Now, that having been said, we do want responses through the CB2 receptor, and in the example that I'm using, when we're under heavy exercise, elucidating the CB2 receptor system means that the body is under protection. I'm less likely to damage tissues. I have faster recovery within my tissues. So it sustains body responses in an appropriate way. Now, those are the endocannabinoids. That's why it's called the endo or cannabinoids, or a system that works within the body. But there are also exocannabinoids, cannabinoids that exist outside of the body. And there are three main cannabinoids that are derived from plants that I need to share with you. Now, let me tell you that a cannabinoid is defined as anything that deals with or works with the CB receptors, CB1 or CB2 or both. And so the three main cannabinoids that we're going to talk about today, one is cannabidiol, one is tetrahydrocannabinol, and then lastly, we have beta-caryophyllene. Now, CBD, this is the one that you've heard a lot about, that you read a lot about in the press, you read a lot about in the media. Let me give you some clarity into this for a moment. I'm glad some of you are really happy. You might not like me in a minute, so let me explain this to you. All outcomes in the body, you've heard me say this before, is an issue of concentration and delivery. Cannabidiol is a cannabinoid that we expressly see in the cannabis plant. Now, there's nothing wrong with that except for two primary things in this discussion of how we would define potency in doTERRA. First, we've tested a number of different oils that are in the marketplace under this umbrella. And what was alarming to me is that cannabidiol was not present or was present in extremely small quantities. We're not talking 1 to 5%, we're talking 0.02%, 0.01%, very small amounts. The other challenge that exists with cannabidiol, now there's lots of reasons why maybe that's not being liberated in the essential oil. And this is a big challenge with this: improper processing, sustainability of sourcing, and whether or not the compound and the chemistry is even present in the oil in a substantial amount to create the benefit that we're looking for. Is it in the plant? Yes. But that does not mean that it's going to be present in the essential oil. And our testing has showed us that in general, it's not. Now, it also does not have direct effect on the CB2 receptor, which is what we're after, or CB1. It doesn't interact with either one of them. It has an indirect route. Part of the challenge with that is we like direct activity, because when we have direct activity, we have direct response that correlates to what that receptor or what that ligand, or in this case, what that cannabinoid would suggest that it should do. So that's a challenge that exists with that. That does not mean that cannabidiol is not a good thing. It just means it's not readily available. The other challenge we have with tetrahydrocannabinol is tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, we're all familiar with what that is. It interacts almost exclusively with the CB1 receptor. And it is present in hemp oil in very high amounts. It's illegal. And we're not going to participate. We refuse. So that leaves us with this last one, beta-caryophyllene. Now, beta-caryophyllene, in my estimation, has some significant potential associated with it. One, it does not interact with CB1 receptor in the central nervous system, which means I don't have any of the elucidative effects that we see with some of the other products that are available. Secondly, it does interact, and it interacts directly with the CB2 receptor, which is where, when we look at all of the research and all of the information, it's talking about this interaction, this direct interaction with the CB2 receptor. And we get that in full context with beta-caryophyllene as a cannabinoid. Rather than cannabidiol, or rather than THC, we look to beta-caryophyllene as providing that same benefit, but in a more magnified and powerful response. So we have a lot of oils that have beta-caryophyllene in it. We've talked about black pepper. We've talked about black pepper in a number of different qualities of use, including helping the body to recover and to overcome addiction type behaviors. All of these essential oils have very strong capacity for helping to eliminate any type of environmental threats that we would see. They're all very significant. Each one of these, what's not listed on here is oregano, and you've heard me talk many times about oregano and its interaction with CB2 receptors. There is not any one single oil that is going to do all things in all circumstances. It cannot exist, and it will not ever exist, because simply your body doesn't work that way. That's not how body physiology works, and that's not how chemistry within that physiological system would be expected to work either. And so I'm going to introduce to you today an oil that I think far exceeds anything else that's available, Copaiba. Now, there's some unique things about Copaiba. First is that it is a blend of 4 different species. Now, why would we do that? This is not new to doTERRA. Some would argue, well, you do it because it gives you sustainability. That's not the process behind the thinking that we would have for combining 4 species of this essential oil. Any more than that's the thinking we had for why we do the same thing with frankincense, and we have 3 species of frankincense oil combined together. It's because we increase the therapeutic potential. We increase potency, and we increase diversity of that potency. So we've blended 4 essential oils together, which, yes, is very unique to doTERRA. Not something you'll be able to find anywhere else. But why we did it is because now these are the types of outcomes that we expect to see with this essential oil. Liver and antioxidant support. You know, your liver is under constant stress, and having something that on a regular basis could be soothing and amplifying of its abilities to function appropriately. And go right through the list: cardiovascular, digestive, immune system, respiratory, neurological function, all driven through the CB2 response as a receptor. And now we have chemistry that interacts with that at an appropriate level so that we really do see these types of benefits and outcomes. Now, there's some simple ways to do it. Internal application. I've given you, instead of just saying, this is what we want to do, I'm giving it to you differently. Use 2 drops in a capsule. And it can be taken in the morning and in the evening. And I'm suggesting that you would want to do that for cell support, whole body support. Blend with frankincense will increase that even more. And you learned just a moment ago that maybe considering white fur is another way, Siberian fir is another way that you could increase that even more. Put a couple of drops in your water. That remains an excellent delivery system for the essential oils, not because the water and oil mix, but because it gives us access to the mucous membranes. Take 1 or 2 drops under the tongue in the morning, or take one with mealtime, a capsule with mealtime. Now, remember last year we talked about neuroexcitability, and we said that when neurological tissue becomes excited, while there can be some real benefit with that, there can also be some real challenges because it increases our cognitive perception of being uncomfortable, specific to a tissue response that's elucidated or anticipated through some other fashion or process. Do you understand what I just said? Some of you do, some of you don't. It's okay. What you want to do is use this oil topically for some of those kinds of conditions. So apply it directly over the affected area and do that diluted for the reasons that we just talked about. It holds the essential oil directly into the tissues. Combined with blue tansy is a great way to think about this topically for any skin irritations. And then once again, blend it with the facial moisturizer that we have, or with cedarwood, which supports the underlying tissues of the skin. So you get a really healthy skin profile on the inside out by just following a simple application method that way. Now, it really does have concentrated focus directly into these areas. And it's very powerful for that reason. So think about this globally now for immune support. Think about it for good ways to have a normal, controlled, wait for it, inflammatory response, and a reduction of tissues and reduction of the excitation within neurological tissues. In other words, helping the body to become at ease through all of those systems. Now, aromatically, this is a really easy essential oil to use too. It is just as simple as breathing in the aroma, but I would suggest that you learn to use this oil periodically throughout the day, calming the emotions and the stress that comes with that sense of dis-ease that happens in the body. Combine with citrus oils to elevate the mood, or combine with Siberian fir or a floral oil will cause it to be deeply relaxing and soothing to the body. Are you excited about the new oils?